It definitely takes some getting used to drive on the other side of the road, but I think it's an added bit of fun in an otherwise mundane trip to the grocery store.
Few vehicles have transformed as much during their lifetime as the Skyline. The car first appeared in the late 1950s as sort of a post-war Japanese interpretation of a Maserati. But after a couple of generations, Nissan decided they wanted to go racing, and the car morphed into the Skyline GT and ultimately the Skyline GT-R. By 1989, Japan was at the height of its ascendancy as a global economic power, and what better to celebrate than with a world-beating sports car, the R32 Skyline GT-R. Why does this car matter to the modified car community? It's because it's part of a rare breed of over-engineered platforms that allowed people to tinker, have fun, and add loads of horsepower without a whole lot of effort. It inspired dozens of tuning shops to open, but more importantly, it introduced a whole generation to the brilliance of Japanese sports cars.
If you're a fan of modified cars like me, then from the very beginning, the Skyline was the game over. Partially just because of what it is, right? RB26, twin turbo, 2.6 liter inline six, making 280 horsepower, but really more like 320 horsepower once you took the restrictor out. All-wheel drive system, rear steering, really advanced geometries, all of those things help a car become a legend. But then there's the legend. For someone like me, growing up in America, was experienced mainly through Best Motoring, Hot Version, as well as Gran Turismo, where the Skyline was basically unbeatable in the virtual world. And then 2014 comes around. Skyline becomes 25 years old, importable, and I start driving them. And what do you know? The Skyline manages to live up to the legend. It's also got a lot of things tuners are looking for. Big, strong iron engine block, great for handling boost. Easily accessible turbochargers, great for swapping them out and upgrading. Big frontal area, great for keeping things cool at speed. Great aftermarket support, especially as these cars become more importable. So all of these things add up to make the Skyline really what we think of it as being. And they all contribute to the fact that the Skyline itself pretty much drives the entire JDM importing market. This R32 is the lightest of the older Skylines. It weighs about 3,200 pounds. Better pistons for more boost, upgraded cams for a little more valve lift, and then HKS turbos, and it's all running E85. Now it's very modern. And so that's good for around 440 horsepower to the wheels, which is an excellent power to weight ratio in a car like this. This car is very agile, it's very lively, and it loves to rev. Because of the built engine, Redline is all the way up at 8,500 RPM, and it'll go there all day. It definitely takes some getting used to drive on the other side of the road, but I think it's an added bit of fun in an otherwise mundane trip to the grocery store. You know, we're talking about quintessential experiences, right? I want a quintessential muscle car experience, Hellcat. I want a quintessential exotic car experience, Lamborghini Countach. Quintessential tuner car experience, modified Skylines. Welcome to heaven. If you're a fan of JDM cars, you're probably wondering where you get JDM cars. Well, you can either search on the internet and hopefully learn Japanese in the process, or you can call up my friends Sean and Yaska here at TopRank Importers in Cypress, California. These guys import literally hundreds of Skylines and other JDM cars every year and sell them legally throughout the United States.
Hi, I'm Sean Morris. This is TopRank Importers, and we import cars over 25 years old into the U.S.
Give me the short version on the 25-year import rule.
Cars over 25 years old are exempt from federal motor vehicle safety standards. So basically it means like all of the things that we would normally need to meet, we're just exempt at 25.
How much of the Japanese vehicle importing business is driven purely by Skylines?
I'd say it is. I'd say the
whole
business,
thing.
The whole
entire business is driven by Skylines.
The whole entire business is driven by Skylines. I don't know if people would know some of the other cars if it wasn't really for the Skyline.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a, maybe, you know, of course you're gonna have guys say, oh, the RX-7s and the Supras and all these other cars and, you know, Fast and Furious and all this kind of other stuff. But it's like, a lot of it drives back to the Skyline, the R32 GT-R and what the R32 GT-R was. And then the other manufacturers and other things having to step up to meet and try to exceed that car.
One thing I like about the Skyline is it's actually got quite a bit of versatility. You've got your sort of drag car, you've got your race car, you've got your street build, and you can kind of push it in whatever direction you want to go. What, to you, having seen hundreds and hundreds of these cars, what is the real sweet spot for modifying a Skyline?
Right around 500 horsepower is a really sweet spot. The thing is that, like, you know, you can go as insane as you want. These cars, I say, in Japan, they're supported like Mustangs or Camaros here in the States, right? You know, for a Mustang or a Camaro, you know, at certain years, the US market is huge. The aftermarket support is huge. There's so many things available. Right. I mean, for a GT-R, I can buy 6 bolt-in sequential transmissions, different ones. Like, you can just buy it, you know, if you have the money to pay for it, you can just buy it, bolt it in, here you go. Yeah. I mean, that doesn't exist for other platforms. It just doesn't, you know, those kinds of things aren't out there. There's billet blocks, there's all this insane stuff.
I get this question a lot.
Yes.
The question is, should I buy this car I found on Craigslist with a Florida title or whatever? You know, what are some of the very real risks about buying the wrong imported car?
So what happens on cars that get imported incorrectly? I mean, it could be seized. It's really very seldom. Normally what happens with the imported stuff is the guy who's importing them gets popped, but you know, you do run some risk. You run risk with stuff like insurance, you run risk with, you know, selling it to somebody else down the line. You run risk here in California. California will pop it almost every single time. So if you bought a car from a different state, you bring it into California, you tried to bring it into compliance, California would actually look up and see whether or not it was imported correctly. So it happens. It doesn't happen often, but it happens enough to be a little scary.
Don't shortcut that process. It's really not worth it.
It's not that hard to do. It's not hard to do it right. Yeah. It's just a lot of people, you know, they don't want to do things right. Yeah. And the rules are, this is what it is. It's cut and dry. And every single day we get a call from somebody that says, I want to do this. You know, people will ask us, they want to import a 2015 Prius from Japan for whatever reason. Okay, well, sorry, it's not possible. And they're like, oh, but this gets so much better gas mileage and da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, but it's not legal. This is R34 race car. This is Altia car in Japan, racing Super Taikyu. Gunmetal R32.
And then this pearl NSA.
Right, yeah, this is neutron white pearl. As far as we can tell, maybe 3 or 4 in the world were painting this color. So it's kind of a special, weird thing. So we got the Soares car, which has the, you know, OS 88. It's kind of built. This one is Yaska's cars. Painted midnight purple, has a Nismo S1 engine in it, R34 seats, and a lot of other kind of cool stuff. So it's kind of pretty underneath here.
Oh,
so,
yeah, wow.
You know, you can buy complete engines and stuff from Nismo. You can buy complete cars from Nismo. And so this one is like a complete engine from Nismo.
Cool.
And then this is R33 we're gonna be taking today. It's got, like, you know, 400R bumper, It's got 18, 10.5 T37s on it. And I said it's got some tire on there. Good street car.
Okay. This is an R33 Skyline GT-R built in 1995. This R33, the second gen GT-R, is kind of the unloved one of the family. The R32 purists like that car because it's the lightest, and the R34 because it's the rarest, best performing, and most iconic. Now, other than an appearance briefly in Fast and the Furious, the 33 is kind of a middle child. But it shouldn't be, because the secret is it's actually very, very good to drive. Looks very good. You can mod it just like all the other ones, and if you happen to be tall like me, it has more leg room than the 32. The first time you drive one of these, it's a very special experience. I've driven almost everything from the late 80s and early 90s, and no car, not a Ferrari, nor a Lamborghini, nor a Rolls Royce, BMW, none of that feels as refined, as special, and as modern as a Skyline. Go drive an 89 Porsche Turbo, an 89 Ferrari, an 89 Lamborghini, and then drive the Skyline. It feels like the Skyline was built in 2010. And there's a few reasons they feel so good. The inline six is silky smooth, and the twin turbos give you a very broad torque band like engines are all doing today. The all-wheel drive system gives you tons of grip without needing overly wide tires. The gearbox is super smooth. The experience inside is very refined. It's spacious, it's nice, it's almost luxurious. This R33 is modified in a way that a lot of people would typically modify their street car. You increase the boost pressure to 1 bar, or about 14 PSI. That's good for 350 at the tires on pump gas and no mechanical problems at all. You then throw a set of HKS coilovers on there, TE37 wheels, and modern rubber. That combination wakens the car up just a little bit, doesn't mess up your reliability, and it offers a versatility for a variety of driving conditions. Perhaps most importantly, the RB26 engine loves to rev. Factory redline of this engine is 8,000 RPM. That's what you want. That's what sports cars are. Sports cars rev. The first time I drove one of these, and I realized the fact that it was a cheater car in the video game was actually based on reality. 29 starts, 29 victories in Group A racing for the R32 GT-R. That's in one season. And when you drive the car, you can see how that is true. It feels like a homologation race car. Like it has certain qualities to it that only exist in race cars. And although at the time I can imagine there were some purists who thought this was too much technology, this was not pure driving anymore, the way of maybe a Ferrari 348 or 355 was. I could see that. But by virtue of being a manual transmission with old school hydraulic steering and relatively low weight for something of its size, it gives you an authentically analog old school experience that won't be replicated anymore going forward. Oh yes.